Governance has been done for a long time, like thousands of years. Just because we have like this new tech, I don't feel like we need to completely reinvent the wheel. We really want to work with the community to figure out how we can have these like somewhat possibly committees, sub-DAOs, I don't know what you'd call them, that would have experts of a specific in a specific field that can help out with decisions. Each validator, if they are elected, has a set amount of rewards that that validator receives, regardless of any delegations. And all the delegators take a split of the rewards that validator receives. The first iteration of Panic was built like around the launch of the Cosmos Hub. It works with various ecosystem nodes like the Cosmos ecosystem, Substrate ecosystem, Chainlink nodes.
Welcome to the Bare Metal Podcast.
This is Martin from Rockaway X Labs here on the Bare Metal Podcast, where we want to talk about all things technical and non-technical validation. I'm here with Francesco from Simply.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be one of the first guests.
Yeah, welcome. So let's dive right in. When did you guys start validating? What was your first chain?
Let me give some intro on the company. So the company was founded like in 2013, running Bitcoin miners and then later on Ethereum miners. And we got into master nodes. After proof of work, we got into master nodes. So the early stage proof of stake networks, which in reality, those were the first chains. So like running Dash and PivX master nodes. And then once we started realizing that a lot of these master nodes we were running were somewhat like scammy and questionable, we found Cosmos, which was sort of similar. It was proof of stake, but now sort of delegated proof of stake was getting popular. We also ran like BitShares nodes, which was one of the first delegated proof of stake networks prior to Cosmos. So yeah, in 2018 we started working with Cosmos in the Cosmos testnets, and from there on out we've pretty much joined most of Tendermint chains and other ecosystems such as Polkadot, many substrate chains, and other networks like Celo. That's from Cosmos Hub was probably like the main like public participation we've had in the proof of stake ecosystem.
That's pretty cool. So you guys are OG, back to the POW days.
Exactly.
Since you guys also validate Polkadot, right? I'm interested. What would you comment on, or what do you think is the difference sort of between like if you're a validator on a Polkadot chain versus if you're a validator on a Tendermint chain? Is there any significant difference to validators?
So in terms of validating, I would say it is pretty similar, at least from an infrastructure perspective. I would say if you're running on a parachain, you would need to run double the nodes, because you need to run, for example, if you're running on a Polkadot parachain on the same VM, you need to run like a Polkadot node, and at the same time you need to run the parachain node. I would say with regards to staking and finding delegators, it's sort of a separate community and marketing within the Polkadot ecosystem. So as someone coming from the Cosmos ecosystem, you will find that possibly in the Polkadot ecosystem, the people are different. You need to make different, make sort of relationships with different delegators. And it's also different in the sense it's not as easy to, the delegation system is not as easy as in Cosmos. So in Cosmos, you just delegate to a validator and you get rewards depending on how much you delegate to any validator. Now, on the substrate side of things, each validator, if they are elected, has a set amount of rewards that that validator receives, regardless of any delegations. And all the delegators take a split of the rewards that validator receives. So if a validator is over-delegated, for example, their delegators will get less rewards.
Less rewards, right? Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't aware of that. So that seems different. But I want to go back to what you said. You mentioned that it's pretty similar, but if you're validating a parachain, you also need to run a Polkadot node.
Exactly.
So you're managing like two containers. Do these need to be on the same machine, or are they tightly connected?
As far as I know, yes, because we've had internal discussions to split them, but they need to be in the same machine. Yeah. So if you're running, for example, we run Moonbeam, we run a few validators or collators on Moonbeam, and you need to run sort of the Moonbeam node and the Polkadot node on the same VM. It's quite a lot of extra resources in reality to run.
Yeah, that does seem like. Again, that's an interesting point for me. I wasn't aware of that. And on the topic of running nodes, I mean, how do you guys operate? How do you provision your infrastructure? How do you guys approach running validating node?
Yeah. So back to our point around, like, we started with proof of work. So since we were doing proof of work in the past, the team in the past started building out a sort of premises in Malta, and over the years as we grew, and the company got its first like full-time employees in 2018, including myself, and we started building out this data center. That from proof of work we built out this proof of stake operation, and we have sort of a tier 3 data center here in Malta, and we have cabinets and servers in this data center, and we run various Dell hosts with vCenter, VMware, and we use we have our own hosts and servers. We have a hypervisor on these servers, and we create VMs on these servers. We have a
So you guys run a private cloud.
Exactly, and in reality, it is not only. So we have our main location in Malta. However, like, you need backups. Like, initially, we were running strictly out of our location in Malta, but sometimes, like, it is not. You need backup locations. In other continents, we have another one in North America, a cabinet we have in another data center, and we have a cabinet in Northern Europe, so that we have a bit of diversification. But we don't use the cloud in any way. We don't rent servers. We rent cabinets, and we send our own hardware, send our own people to set up stuff, to ensure we have full control over the hardware, and like no third party can access our servers and VMs without permission.
So you pack the metal into a suitcase, and a guy gets on the plane and he flies to North America, puts it in a rack.
I doubt they go in a suitcase, but that's the general idea, yes. We send out the servers, and then we have our I didn't go myself, but so our CTO. So the foundations of all this is our CTO Isaac has like prior heavy experience in working in data centers, and this all this management and planning was built on his back, and big props to him, because he takes care of all this. And so pretty much a private cloud with multiple locations and multiple continents, especially in some chains where we have, especially we feel that in testnets, when there are little peers on the network, our validators start missing blocks when we run from our Malta location. So when like peer connectivity is really low, we feel it in our on our validators in Malta. So sometimes we need to run like a testnet either in North America or in Northern Europe, and it helps having like stronger peer connectivity.
Yeah, I'm reminded when you say Malta, were there some recent undersea cable cuts around the south of France? Is that perhaps something that would affect you guys?
I don't think it affected us. As far as I know, most of the undersea cables go to Sicily or to Italy, or to the center of Italy. We don't have any cables that go to France. They're mostly through Italy, our undersea cables.
So I'm assuming because you virtualize your own hardware, you guys can actually fail over pretty fast. So if one of your VMs drops, you can respin it quickly. So how do you guys how do you think about hot backups? Do you have like hots ready in the other DC, or?
Yes, it's pretty much like it is for every single network we run. We have multiple nodes. We have a key failover system. One of the worrying things around when you're running a validator is is, okay, what if our multi-location dies completely? We can't just easily turn on a validator in another location, or it's not super simple because we don't want to double sign, right? So we have process in place where if our main data center is going to be down for an extended period of time, we have ways to ensure that our validators, or especially if our key management software is sort of down as well, we have processes in place to ensure that, if that is down, if our main data center is down, we can spin up validators in other locations. In reality, we already have nodes everywhere synced, but we can turn those into validators. So that is from the validator signing side of things. In terms of like the actual hardware, all our VMs are running sort of with vSphere, and technically the hosts, if like one of our hosts dies, the VMs can easily move onto another host. We don't use local SSDs. We use shared, like IBM shared storage. So if any host dies, like the VM we just move the VM across to the new host, and it will just immediately sort of start back up.
And it connects to the shared storage.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
And spins right back.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's a heavy setup.
Yes.
So you guys, when you provisioned the DC, you had to provision connectivity wires, like buy it from a provider. You guys buy capacity.
Yeah. So we have multiple ISPs. We have a huge generator, huge UPS. We've had electrical engineers. Recently, we somewhat in the past few years, we've done changes to the electrical grid system to ensure we don't have overloads. It's quite a lot of work, and as a new validator, it's pretty hard to achieve such a thing because it's literally been built over the years, and it's evolved over time. So yeah, I think we have a pretty good setup in that sense, and we're lucky to have had all these years to evolve it, because this doesn't happen overnight, sort of get this set up. Speaking about the storage, we've also had over time, it took us a while to optimize our storage situation, because some nodes, maybe the Cosmos ones are not too hard on disk, but if you get into, we, apart from validators, run EVM chains for our chaining operation, our Oracle operation. And when you get into the polygons and Polygon and BSC, those are very harsh on disk IO. And
lots of files.
Yeah, and it was a whole debate in reality, IOPS versus disk latency. And in reality, we found out that latency to disk is what really mattered at the end. We moved from there are different protocols, there's iSCSI and Fiber Channel, and we realized going to Fiber Channel is faster than moving from SATA SSDs to NVMe SSDs makes it even faster. So it's just mostly Isaac has spent so much time thinking about this. It took us so long because we were running our Binance Smart Chain nodes in our premises on gaming PCs until we figured out our SSD situation. Why we were throwing really great hardware at these BSC nodes, but they just weren't keeping up. So we were running on gaming PCs for a bit until we figured out that we have to use fiber channels. I think we use flash core modules now in our IBM storage. Isaac told me they're used for like caching normally, but we use them for storage.
For storage, yeah. To keep up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So
sounds expensive.
Exactly.
Okay.
It does sound. It is pretty expensive.
Yeah, but that's a lot of architecture work, like on the hardware side. I've heard before that BSC nodes take heavy resources. That it's quite difficult to keep them in sync and to keep them updated. And of course, yeah, if you use shared storage for that failover ability, then yeah, you're increasing the latency, and therefore you have to buy even better hardware, make sure it's even more tuned. So kudos for that. I mean, that's pretty interesting to listen to the story.
Exactly.
So since the system is so complex, obviously you guys need to monitor this somehow. and I guess you've got your own infra. And the interesting thing I found online about you guys is you've released a tool called Panic.
Exactly.
So I've read about this somewhere. I haven't seen it widely sort of explained. What does like do you guys, having written Panic, have you written it like for yourself and then sort of shared it, or how did this work?
So the first iteration of Panic was built like around the launch of the Cosmos Hub in 2019. I think at the time there wasn't much information around monitoring around the launch of Cosmos Hub, and we pushed out this repo called Panic_Cosmos on GitHub. It was a simple Python program, something that we needed. We wanted to monitor our nodes and Cosmos nodes, and over time, so we published this and we sent it out to the community, and some validators picked it up, and we're using Panic. And so yeah, basically what Panic did back then was it sort of communicate to Telegram with sort of what is happening on your Cosmos-based nodes, both validators and the sentries, and it can also call you on Twilio. So that was the extent of the monitoring tool. Now, as a validator operation started to grow into other ecosystems, we started learning what other people are doing in their monitoring setups. We wanted to like further this effort and further like the program, the product itself, Panic. So we started building it, and we got various grants from various teams, and we spent a lot of resources and a lot of time. I would say 1 to 2 years building an overhauled version of Panic, which includes like a web UI. It works with various ecosystem nodes like the Cosmos ecosystem, Substrate ecosystem, Chainlink nodes, because a lot of validators in the ecosystem actually end up running like various other networks, Substrate-based Chainlink node operations as well. So we built Panic, which is this easy to run, easy deployment monitoring tool. And yeah, it also includes, apart from like Telegram and Twilio, it has other channels like the major ones like PagerDuty, Observatory, that allows you to add like team escalations, which are super important when you want to have a scalable team. And
Sure.
yeah, so it is a monitoring tool that we currently use. Now we have a lot of different. So it monitors blockchain nodes and the system metrics of the nodes. In reality, because we have all this infra, we do use some other monitoring tools because we have a lot of different layers of our data centers and stuff like that. However, it is a great tool for node operators, especially those who are starting up, because it comes built in with a lot of alert thresholds, things you don't think you should monitor, and a lot of like the main thing that I feel over the years we've spent a lot of time tinkering are alert thresholds, because false positives are a nightmare. Sure. And I think my team has gotten nights ruined over the years heavily by false positives.
Yeah, I hear that. Obviously. So let me get sort of understand what Panic focus on, because as you said, as you explained, you guys have multiple layers, right? So for example, I guess you don't use Panic to monitor the amount of space in your shared storage. So this is likely something that lives inside the VM level, right? So it uses the Prometheus exported metrics. Like, does it include like a Prometheus plus Grafana sort of stack, or what's
what Panic? No, Prometheus and Grafana aren't used by Panic. So Panic is its own thing. It has its own front end. It has its own export. Like it has its own it gathers its own metrics from the RPC port of nodes, Prometheus metrics, on-chain data around like governance proposals. It can query like GitHub repos to notify you if there's a new release. It can query node exporter, for example, on VMs to give you the system metrics of your nodes. And so it works around on-chain data, Prometheus data from the nodes themselves.
You guys read what the Tendermint code and the Cosmos SDK export in terms of Prometheus metrics, but you've developed your own code to actually parse that and then really aggregate everything that's important for managing crypto nodes. So this is not a Prometheus plus Grafana stack that's somehow modified. This is a new stack that's from the ground up, developed together all these metrics into one place.
Exactly.
For everything from software. Okay, I didn't know that. That's
exactly. It has its own front end. It integrates itself with other like PagerDuty, Opsgenie, etc. And yeah, it is built. It is built for validators like ourselves to monitor their nodes. One thing about this is we got grants to build this, and we've built it, put it out there. It's open source, but however, since we're a startup and we have a limited amount of resources, and it's somewhat a non-profitable like solution, especially in a bear market, we have currently paused development on it. It is a good foundation, sort of, that technically someone out there wants to continue building on, and it can scale well because there's really great work there.
You guys still use it, right? What you're saying is you're not putting extra effort in developing new features, but it's still workable. And
exactly.
It's job.
One thing that's sort of in the long term to continue sustaining it is especially in the crypto winter, and we have this is a sore point that we had around Panic, is that it seems like we as a validator, it is a sort of public good, but I feel like validators, it is really helpful for validators out there to have a strong sort of service to networks, and we sort of advertised it to various chains, for example, or as a validator we'd apply to delegation programs and we'd put it as a contribution. And I don't think we saw the interest too much from chains to sort of give delegations for such contribution of public goods. I feel like they do have some appreciation to like wallet providers and explorers. However, the monitoring side of things and like the back end side of things, like monitoring software, wasn't too appreciated. So what we said in reality was, it is the crypto winter is coming. We have a lack of resources, and we have this strong team who's building Panic, who has deep blockchain knowledge, and at the same time we're also building somewhat a Cosmos SDK based chain, and we were thinking, should we continue using these devs who have really great knowledge in Tendermint for a non-profitable monitoring solution which doesn't seem to be getting like the appreciation, and we somewhat took the decision that it is probably best that we use them for furthering our own blockchain rather than Panic. So one thing is I do want to say that people should be careful in the long term. Like I would love to tell people that, like, sticking with Panic is like the way to go for monitoring. However, in the long term, the support like is a bit shaky, and I'm going to be honest here. That things change, especially on the Polkadot side of things. Like the APIs, like Polkadot does a lot of SDK changes and things break. And like if we got public funding, if we got some more funding around this tool, we definitely somewhat have a work and plan to have a team or a two-man team to continue building on it. However, at this point, we would like to ask people to contribute. The repo is public; it's open source on GitHub. So, yeah.
So, do you guys have any idea how many users there are of Panic? Do you guys get any feedback from users? Any any estimates from support?
So I don't have any specific numbers, but we have pretty much daily we get messages from people asking us for help around using, they have a specific error here or there, or suggestions, or troubleshooting help, but we don't have any specific numbers around the users.
Right. You guys don't monitor the monitoring tool.
Exactly. I think we have users on both the old Panic, which was the simple monitoring tool. I think like a lot of people use that in reality, and the new one we also have users, but we don't have any specific numbers around that. About users.
So you touched on a topic that's interesting to me in sort of like trying to understand the crypto ecosystem, and that's public funding, right? So you mentioned like the way this works is, you put something out, then you may be able to, apply for a grant gets applied, but is there any model to sort of support like ongoing development? Have you seen this done anywhere? Do you need is the only way to just keep reapplying for grants, and every time like somebody evaluates, hey, does it still make sense? Because you mentioned delegations, right? And those are obviously like a recurring source of income and make sense for long-term support, to pay for some sort of or to pay for some sort of service by a blockchain foundations or by a large stakeholder. But setting this aside, what about public goods funding that needs to be sort of long-term? What's your thinking around this?
Yeah, regarding the current process, I feel like the current process is you need to apply for grants every time sort of you need an extra set of an extra more money, right? I definitely believe public good funding needs to be worked upon, especially from a community pool perspective, because all the public good funding, most of it is done by foundations, and it's like done privately. You need to apply privately. However, the future of things, especially related to the Cosmos Hub, and I think it's been a big discussion recently, is we need to figure out how to do like community pool spends across like the Cosmos SDK based chains. Polkadot has somewhat done it in a way with the Polkadot Council. We are actually a Polkadot Council member, and we have been for a while. And they have a committee which overlooks public good spends, and has a sort of smoother process for public good funding than the Cosmos based system. As a validator, we somewhat believe that we have a responsibility around governance, and we want to take a sort of active role in furthering these processes and ensuring that there is a public good funding process out there. Recently on the Cosmos Hub, there have been a few community pool spends, and I feel that so much time is spent by the whole community to sort of process these small community pool spends that it's not sustainable at all. I think
fatigue.
Exactly. There's some fatigue, there'll be apathy, people will stop voting. As a validator, we somewhat have a responsibility to help out. And recently, we submitted a proposal around increasing community tax, and that went through well. And I feel like we really want to work with the community to figure out how we can have these like somewhat possibly committees, sub-DAOs, I don't know what you'd call them, that would have experts of in a specific field that can help out with decisions. Like I feel like governance has been done for a long time, like thousands of years. Just because we have like this new tech, I don't feel like we need to completely reinvent the wheel. Like governments nowadays, like they have committees of experts on specific things. It's not like the whole population votes on every single small decision. It's completely unsustainable. Yeah.
So you're saying two things are important though, right? So just so we summarize, like one is a more streamlined sort of application process and clear sort of system workflow. And the second one is sort of like dedicated groups that are focused on one area, are respected, authorities or experts in that place, and they work in public, right? Is that as far as I understand?
Exactly.
What you
These will be really transparent, because it can't be private. Like it just I don't feel like it would work. I think it will go bad, in my opinion, if possibly these experts are like doing discussions in private. in my opinion. I'm for full transparency of all decision making, and yeah, I feel like it is more efficient for some small decisions to be done in committees, whilst also being transparent, and sort of the delegators and the stakeholders of the chain can sort of vote people out or in, depending on what's happening. I know Polkadot is doing something like this. I think they have Polkadot V2. There are some, I think they call them fellowships or streams, depending on the area that's being discussed. And yeah,
Maybe some interesting integration.
exactly.
Right. So you touched on proposals. Congratulations on yours going through.
Thank
But what's your take on sort of Prop 82 and Cosmos Hub governance post that? What's your thinking?
Yeah, I think whilst I feel like the idea behind 82, there were good intentions behind that. It was too big of a proposal. It was overwhelming to most people. Even if, as someone who works sort of full time in the field and the industry, even to me it was quite big. And so imagine like someone who doesn't spend most of their time trying to learn all this tech and on all the things that were proposed in the proposal, because there was a list of things that was being proposed. So it's overwhelming. Like at least we can have it split up into different proposals. So you're adding new tech, new proposed tech. You're adding new ways of funding this tech by minting, which is another controversial thing. So there's just multiple layers of controversy that could happen. And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think I don't want to bash anyone. Like, I think the intentions were great from the team behind that. But I think we need to take a step back, look at what was proposed, figure out what we want, what we don't want, and over the coming months, sort of, we start slowly going towards that. I think the submission of our proposal was sort of inspired by that we want to sort of take it slow, not too slow, but we need to start funding the community pool and figure out what we're going to do with that community pool, how we're going to spend it. So I don't think this community pool, the money that is being received in the community pool now, the 10%, if we're going to spend it all with just community pool spend by community pool spend, we're going to waste a lot of time. At some point next year, we should start having discussions around how the community pool money, what is the process for spending that money, and
a budget system.
Exactly.
Like a treasury, like a budget system. Allocate some high level stuff and just have dedicated people focusing on spending that money wisely.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds. It definitely sounds like something that should be explored.
Yeah, I think come Q1 of next year, we're going to try be active in this area. We don't want to sort of be even saying nothing against what you said, but like congrats that we won the proposal, like we got the proposal through. Like, we want it to be a community effort. We want to get as much community feedback as possible. For if we're leading something, we just want to get the community to start these discussions so that there's progress. Because otherwise, I feel like after the rejection of Atom 2.0, there was some negativity that Cosmos Hub maybe is
felt on Twitter as well.
Stalling, and it just needs sort of some active participation in this area. Yeah, some push, and we can get it through. We're strong supporters of this and the future and the ICS. So yeah, and
yeah, great. So here's to more active development in the hub.
Exactly.
So, I think it's a good place to wrap up this podcast.
Awesome.
So thanks very much, Francesco, for coming on Bare Metal.
Thanks a lot.
And hope to see you again.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been great.